something I've been inspired to share with you. And this is the first time this talk is being presented in public. The inspiration for this talk actually came before we turned into 2016. I will explain a little later. But the theme for 2016 is freedom. And so the topic this morning is about the spiritual power of freedom. To my knowledge, I have not seen any teaching or talk on this topic so far. So it's really exciting to be able to share a perspective on all this. And so let's look at the meaning of freedom. What is freedom? What is freedom? First of all, it's being free in your internal kingdom. So your kingdom is your world. And what is inside is a reflection of what is going outside. So the first thing in freedom is being free in your internal kingdom, your internal world. Then, being free means there are no limitations, restrictions, or boundaries. There are no bondages. You have the ability to soar, and you experience total peace, harmony, and love. So that is the definition of freedom. Now, in order to know something, you have to experience the full measure of the opposite. And so, what is the opposite? The opposite of freedom is bondage. The bad news is this: every person born in this planet is born in bondage to the matrix. When you learn more about the world and what's going on, you'll understand this situation. It's not all bad, because the good news is that we are shifting from bondage into freedom. The fact that all of you are here and you're part of this wonderful center means that you are on your awakening journey to liberation. And as part of that process, it's all about the growing awareness of your soul journey in love and light. Now, when you look at bondage to the matrix, and you're born on this planet, your DNA is imprinted with the programs of lack and fear. These go back many thousands of years. And when you look at the history of the world, which has been convoluted, distorted, misrepresented with the traditional history books, and even when you study the alternative, the conspiracy theories, as well as what's out there, you need to form your own picture of the history of the world, how we've come about, etc. The evidence, and the thing about evidence is that it appears to be true, but real truth is about piecing together information, evidence that resonates with you. And truth is something very nebulous, because your truth changes. And your truth will change according to your level of consciousness. And so, the matrix, the programming of this world, imprints everybody, first of all, with a fear of death. This happened a few thousand years ago, when the world was taken over by Catholicism. And in the history books, the Third Nicene Creed took out all references of reincarnation. The fear of lack is something imprinted in everybody. The world runs on an economic system based on fiat currency. And you look around, the vast majority of people are living lives the opposite of financial independence. They are in lack and they're in need. The whole economic engine of the world revolves around that, so that the wealth of the entire world is in the hands of the very, very few. And this is the polarity of wealth and poverty. The other issue of bondage people have is that they grow up imprinted with negative beliefs. And the three biggest ones that imprison just about everybody are: the first one, I'm unworthy; the second one, I'm no good; the third one, I'm a failure. Growing up, going through school, imprints you inadvertently with all these things. Now, before you go blaming your parents that they messed you up, know that they actually love you and they brought you up doing the best they could. And their greatest adversity and trauma they caused you is actually your greatest gift, when you understand the duality and polarity of life and love and what it's all about. And so, let's look more in detail at spiritual bondage. This is a very, very big area. Now, my beautiful partner, Sia, and myself do a lot of work with many, many people, and we come across these top three. And we've worked with hundreds of people. By the way, my beautiful partner, Sian, sitting at the back there, I encourage you to talk to her at some point in time. She is an incredible wealth of knowledge. She practices Dolores Cannon's quantum hypnotic healing technique and does regressions. So the knowledge she has on past lives, esoteric area, aliens, ETs, that kind of thing is phenomenal. So these sorts of things get your juices going. Just ask her to share some stories with you. Now, the three sources of spiritual trauma come into these three categories. The first category is the beliefs and values that get imprinted into you from the family of origin from birth to age 7. In fact, there's actually prenatal imprinting, because when your mother carries you, whatever she takes on inadvertently goes into you as baby, as part of your consciousness, and that gets imprinted into DNA. The second area is past lives. This is a very big one. And so past life regression, healing from that, causes many shifts with people. The third one is interdimensional interferences, entities, aliens, etc. This is a very big area and it runs extremely deep. I do not have the time to cover it. Suffice to say that Sian and I work with people and we find that a lot of people are not able to shift because of these interferences. For example, trauma in the spirit from a past life could open you up such that an entity could end up being a psychic block in one of your chakras. And it has the right to be there as a result of the agreement of entrapment. So removing it is much more than just simply doing meditation or a clearing with the mind. Now let's move on to something opposite. And the next slide is about the spiritual power of freedom. So what is the spiritual power of freedom? It's the ability to transcend these things. The first one is your limited thinking and beliefs. And so limited thinking and beliefs is about, first of all, knowledge, then growing in awareness, application of that knowledge, and for you to see that your life shifts, evolves, and ascends. Because the bottom line with everything is this: the results in your life speak as to what is really going on, not what you think. The mind lives on stories and unreality. Whatever is going on in the mind is an illusion. The only reality in matter is what's out in nature. And outside the mind, time does not exist. So the mind is programmed to live in the past and live in the future. So we think about the past all the time and use that as our reference point. And then our reference point causes us to look at the future and have certain expectations and directions in going there. As a result, our mind is rarely on the present because there's so much chatter going on. So first of all, transcending the limited thinking and beliefs of the mind is important for spiritual freedom. The next thing is understanding the 9 veils on the human soul. I came across this piece a few months ago and it's extraordinary. I will go through that in more detail later in the presentation. But these 9 veils explain clearly why people cannot see the truth. You know how you talk to people and they just cannot see what you are saying? So those of you who are spiritually aware and then have family and friends around you that are asleep, do not try to change them because they have a veil over their soul that until they do the work or something in them causes that veil to shift, you are talking to a wall. My family, whom I love deeply, have got veils over their soul. If they knew what I was doing like this, they would think I've gone off the planet, off my mind. So all of you know what I'm talking about. When you have spiritual power and freedom, you then transcend the fear of death. Everybody runs away from death. Everybody fears death. But death, D-A-T-H, when you look at the acronym of the word death, it means destiny, evolving, in actualizing a transcending hologram. So if death is all about you transcending as a hologram, what is there to fear? There is nothing to fear. When you know the light, death is a passageway home. When you have spiritual freedom, you transcend financial bondage and lack. To be able to be financially free and not in need is something everybody desires. The multi-billion-dollar personal development industry runs on the promise of selling you the illusion that if you paid multiple thousands of dollars for their course, you will then end up with complete financial freedom. And these are the 7 steps you need. And because they're like gold, they cost you many thousands of dollars. Come and do the course and you'll have all the financial freedom you want, all the relationships you desire, and create the life that you want and have total control of everything that you want to be masters of your own destiny. How many of you heard all that before in terms of marketing speaking? Now, when you look at the results of these courses, what do you see? Very little change in people because they do not address the spiritual issues of bondage. It is all mind stuff. And it's mind candy. That's all it is. And when you go through mind candy on these courses, it feels good. And you have the lawnmower effect. Let me explain what the lawnmower effect is. And when you go into these courses, it's a wonderful positive experience. So, if you have a lawn and there are weeds sprouting up all over the lawn, you run a lawnmower over it, it looks fantastic. You feel great and you go, all the weeds are gone. I can get on with my life. What happens 2 weeks later? Exactly. You see the pattern? And so, knowing these things and being able to get to the root of the problem is what's required. The last thing in spiritual power freedom is to transcend the programming of the matrix. And that's a big one. Now, let's move on and look at the results of spiritual freedom. So again, how do you know the fruit of a tree? by partaking of it. How do you know something works in your life? By the results in your life. So if you're going to go through life, and one year after another, it's the same thing. You make the same New Year's resolutions beginning of every new year, and if you fall into the pattern of everybody else in the world, which is normal and called mainstream, there's a very simple vernacular that describes that, right? And it goes like this: same shit, different day. And so when that happens, you are not free.
That's right.
All you are doing is perpetuating, going round the imprisonment of your life. So, what are the results of spiritual freedom? First of all, financial abundance. Sian and I have been together 5 years. This is our 17th, 1-7, overseas trip together.
That's great.
We had 6 last year. We had 5 the year before. We enjoy abundance to the point whereby we don't think about money in the bank. And when you have financial abundance, nothing is expensive. Let me say this again. When you have financial abundance, nothing is expensive. If something is expensive, you can't afford it. And so it's about shifting your thinking as well. Then what happens is that everything simply has a monetary value. And instead of looking at it as expensive or cheap, you just decide, is the dollar figure appropriate for what you require, not what you need? So it's a significant shift in looking at things. Then, when you have spiritual freedom, the vitality of your health and relationships shifts to a whole new level. Health is a very big area. Growing old and having your health reduce significantly, particularly when you get to the advanced years of your 60s, 70s, and 80s, is normal. But normal is not natural. And so, having spiritual freedom is enjoying vitality and health irrespective of age. We are seeing today anti-aging technologies that are very important and powerful. The light that we have is the most powerful anti-aging tool that I know of on the planet. And I've got data to prove it from HeartQuest Monitor complex electrocardiogram results. And when you look at me, I turn 60 next year. And I don't feel my age. I'm actually doing more as time goes on. The travel I do every year, 6 overseas trips, etc., do not cause me problems. I have 0 jet lag, traveling from one end of the planet to another. There is nothing I cannot do as a result of my age. So this is one of the results of spiritual freedom. And then relationships. Spiritual freedom allows you to transcend all the drama and the stuff of relationships. It doesn't happen in an instant. It's a process that moves and shifts. Then the result of spiritual freedom is living in what's called float. It's the highest level. It's beyond flow. And that's fulfilling love in oneness with awareness that's transcending. Another point of spiritual freedom is being able to fulfill your highest mission. Many of you here, particularly most of the people that were with me yesterday, didn't know what they're meant to be doing as their highest calling. So we went on a process of helping them discover that. And then the best thing about spiritual freedom is to be able to transcend all 3D drama of this world. Pretty good, yes? Now, I'm into mind maps. And here's a mind map on freedom. Now, some of you may not be able to read this when the slide comes on the screen. Yeah. And I map these words out that explain and unpack them in detail. And if you like these, I've got a whole stack of them over a whole lot of different topics. But let me actually go into the meaning of freedom on the next slide. Now, freedom is this: the flowing release of expectations and experiences. That's the first part. The second part is then allowing destiny in oneness to materialize. So this is the meaning of the acronym of freedom. Look at the first one, the flowing release of expectations and experiences. Your expectations from your experiences, from your beliefs and your imprinting limit freedom. When you release all expectations and you put a blank sheet of paper, you are in the moment completely open. You have freedom. And the flowing release means that you are moving with what's going on in the universe. You are not stuck in your little world. Then the result of being free is that you allow destiny in oneness to materialize. Now, what that means is this. Destiny is what you are meant to be doing and what other people are meant to be doing collectively together for a time like this that's the most important on the planet, which impacts the universe. What is that? It is the shift in consciousness of humanity and the ascension of this planet from the third to the fifth dimension. That is the most important thing. And it's the most exciting time to be alive. Now. So that's the destiny. Oneness is a coming together of everything, the removing of separation. I'll unpack oneness more in detail for you because all of you are about oneness. And when it materializes, it turns up in your world. So that matter and spirit become one. Now let's look at 2016. And this is something that I've done every year, and 2016 is the 5th year we've done it. And this is a quantum mind map, which is the collective unconscious wisdom of a group of people having a look into the energy snapshot of the following year. I started doing this in 2012, which was amazing. And I've done it every single year. And 2016 is the 5th year I've done it. So number 5 is important and critical. So what 2016 is about, which will go next slide and I'll unpack that. It's about freedom. So that's why I'm talking about freedom now. And it's freedom in the super dimensions of life. Now what's the super dimensions of life? The super dimensions of life is about looking at what limits us, being able to shift from what limits us to the potential of what can be. We came here in November during a workshop looking at the 21st century superhuman. So the super dimensions of life is about tapping into the higher powers that you have, and the energies coming into the planet are facilitating all this happening, which is why moving towards spiritual freedom is really important for people to know and understand. Now, a watershed of the old is passing away. So watershed of the old, watershed of the old.
Bit his battery.
Oh, it's his battery?
The old is passing away.
Okay.
Watershed of the old means that the old is passing away. The new is coming. And there's new consciousness turning up. And the new consciousness is going to facilitate increasing opportunity. And the increasing opportunity will help you rise and shift towards transcendence. If you want to know one word that is really key for your life, it is transcendence. Because whatever you resist persists. No point resisting, no point fighting. Just transcending. And that requires a whole new paradigm of thinking and doing. Now, just to put things in context, here are the themes from previous years when I did a group quantum mapping of the unconscious wisdom. 2012 was the rebirth of the I am, not the end of the world. And the rebirth of the I am was really a profound theme because it fitted in with the Mayan calendar and all the prophecies, because it was the end of an age, the end of the age of Pisces moving into the age of Aquarius. So it's the rebirth of the I am. It was 2012. Then 2013 was about the discovery of self in the awakening to the I am. That's what 2013 was about. And then 2014 was an adventure in growth and abundance. 2015 was then growth in enlightenment to unity. And now 2016 is about freedom in the super dimensions of life, making way for the new consciousness, for transcendence. And when you look at all those five, they're a theme that follow a very powerful thread. And how this has come about was 5 sessions completely at random with different people. So this is a tangible expression and proof of how universal consciousness works, which each of us have the ability to tap into. Now let's look at something really fundamental and basic to everything. And that is love. And love is something that the world talks about, but the world misrepresents and misunderstands. They say love makes the world go round. It does. But which way does the world go round in love? The problem with the way the world goes round with love is that they go backwards and topsy-turvy. Now, when you're a spiritual seeker and a student of energy, light, spirituality, oneness, everything else, you will come to one conclusion. Right at the top, there is Source, all that is, ultimate creator, that is just love. And in this space of love, it transcends dimensions, form, matter. So the I am is like nothingness. And so when you go back to the parable, right, you are everything when you are nothing. It speaks volumes. And also, you know everything when you know nothing. And that parable means that when you empty your mind of all the stuff that it's full of, then you can access all universal knowledge. So let's look at love. The acronym of love. L is the light of your soul. O is bringing oneness to all that is. As V, the vitality of your being. Is E, evolving back to love. Now let's look at evolving. Everything in the universe moves. Everything in nature evolves. History is just a pattern of the evolution of this planet, people, civilization, species, and everything that has life in matter. So, at the top of everything that goes on in the entire universe, all the way down to every micro detail of your life, there is only one perspective. That perspective is this. Is it a movement towards love or movement away from love? Nothing more than that. So, when you are having grief in your life, is that a movement towards love or away from love? If it's a movement away from love, it is a gift of love. Because the movement away from love will allow you to know and experience more love. And it only happens when you embrace the movement away from love into its polarity as a gift and allow it to move back into love. Here's an example. Oprah Winfrey. You know a story, her background, how she went through enormous abuse as a young girl, teenager. pregnant at 13 or whatever it was. She ends up being the first black billionaire in your country because she has taken all the adversity as a gift of love, and as she comes back into love, she's able to magnify and intensify that density of love so that when she runs a TV show and goes and gives a family a car or a house, she's the only one that is able to relate to the people with the heart space of being there. So this is an example of the movement away from love as it comes back to magnify the intensity of love. So that's love. Now let's look at light. And I'm very much into light. And what is light? Light is love bringing insight to you. That's what light is. Light illuminates the soul, illuminates the way, illuminates the heart. So light is love bringing insight into you. And what and how does it do that? It's when you, G, express gratitude of everything in holographic perspective, H. And the T is your soul's transcendental journey back to source. That is the spiritual meaning of light. So love, light, and life are the Trinity that are intricately connected like Father, Son, Spirit. Having more light in your life is critical and important. We are programmed with our modern lifestyle to have very little natural light. So doing sun gazing, being out in the sun, doing sun gazing at dawn and dusk is very good for you. That's why I work with a Pandora star, because that lamp supercharges your brain with light energy. Effects are profound. Better sleep, reduce stress, your brain works better, helps your body heal and shifts your consciousness. Now let's look at life. What is life about? Here's a very, very simple definition of life. L-I-F-E. It is love infusing fullness in your evolution. So you are meant to experience the fullness of everything life has to offer to you and have your cup of fulfillment runneth over. This is the intention of the Creator for you. Now, if you're not experiencing all this in life, then there are areas in your life where you do not have freedom and you are in limitation. Now, whatever area you're in terms of limitation or lack or need or issues in your life, is perfect because there's nothing good or bad. It's just is for this time, for you, for your soul. Now, as people go through life, is it okay if they don't wake up?
Sure.
Absolutely. If they don't wake up, it is not their calling to wake up. It is not their lot to wake up. And it doesn't matter that they don't wake up. And so when you speak to people and you want to shake them and get them out of their shell and say, wake up, wake up, wake up, or da-da-da-da-da, the issue is this. How do you know whether they're meant to or not? See, if you're projecting your intentions and beliefs on them, that may not be appropriate. So the important thing is just work on yourself. And when you come in contact with people, just drop some seeds and allow the Spirit to water the seeds. Your job is to drop seeds in people's soil. Your job is not to water them and make it grow. Let's now look at oneness. This is a really powerful child on oneness. Okay? The definition of oneness is the organic nexus in the eternal now involving your spirits with source. Now let me unpack that. Organic is about the natural flow of life. Nexus is the bond and connection you have with all that. Eternal is the immutable, forever, and endless. Now is the moment where you focus your attention on the present. So, for oneness, you've got to get into the natural flow of life, into the connection and bond of the immutable, the forever, the endless. And then you bring that into the now. And the result is that you then flow into the evolving movement of the ascending nature of what's universal. And then your spirits then connect with the God force in terms of its energy and consciousness, and it takes you back to source, which is the I am of nothingness. And so when you write it out, the next slide is how it's written out. Oneness is the organic nexus in the eternal now, evolving your spirits with source. So it's about the organic connection, the bonds of the eternal now. And then that is evolved, that is expressed in evolving your spirits with source. But when you get this oneness, you can then work on separation in different areas of your life. Now let's look at the 9 veils over the human soul. I'll go over these quickly. This is why people are asleep.
Yeah.
Okay, the first one is the world of politics. This veil is about the politics of the world and what's going on. Now, when people don't understand politics and what's going on in politics, that's a veil over them. The second veil is the world of history. History tells us a lot about the past and what's happened. But the thing about history is that you've got to do your own research, because most history books give you false information. So history is about understanding where you come from, which gives you a perspective of what's going on today. The third veil is that the world is controlled by private families. The vast majority of the population are not aware of this. When you're aware of this, you will know why there is such huge polarity between the wealth of the very, very few and the poverty of the masses. The fourth veil is that the secret societies, the Illuminati, etc., of which the private families are member of, run the world. The fifth veil is that these secret societies have advanced technology to control minds, time travel, and do all sorts of manipulation beyond what we understand. The sixth veil is that ETs, malevolent aliens, control secret societies. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Sian and I work with an Australian by the name of Steve Richards. He teaches holographic kinetics, which is a powerful healing modality. Works on trauma in the spirit. He has some students do some remote viewing on a US base called Pine Gap in Australia. And that has actually 7 levels underground. The first 2 levels, both the US and Australian government do their usual stuff. Levels 3, 4, and 5, top secret with the US government. Level 6 and 7 is where the ETs do their work. So that's an example of how that control happens. And you can see this right around the world. Now, having said that, there is a battle in the heavens between the benevolent and malevolent ETs. The dark have lost the game. And you see the evidence of that all over the place. So there's nothing to fear. Veil number 7 is the world of fractal geometry and numbers. The knowledge of this will give you an insight on the mathematics and function of the universe. Veil number 8 is knowing fully that God is love. This is not a concept of the mind. You talk to people and people say, yep, I know fully that God is love. Well, if you know fully that God is love, then how much separation is there in your life? Because having mental knowledge, having emotional knowledge, and having spiritual knowledge are 3 completely different things. The 9th veil is perfecting the energy of God and being at one with everything. This is the sphere and zone of the great avatars. You can see that historically represented in their lives. Now let's move on. How do you transcend your 3D world into spiritual freedom? Here's some practical examples. You do the 5 elements: air, water, earth, sun, spirit, with the 5 S, which is stillness, silence, solitude, sacred, and space. Then you increase the vitality of your body, mind, spirit, and you evolve to financial freedom. That's the formula. It works. You look at my life, you look at CN's life, you can see the evidence of this. During January, when we were home in Perth, I lived the life of a beach bum. Went to the beach every single day. Went into my spiritual disciplines. And I had the best January in business ever. I did more business lying on the beach than going around working. It's extraordinary. It works. Then the 5S, stillness, silence, solitude. People who meditate do the first 3, but they forget about the last 2, which is sacred and space. Making your meditation sacred is about sanctifying what you are doing and connecting your ritual with the divine and the universe. Most people forget to do that. And then evolving to financial freedom involves transcending lack. Now, I have a whole program on this. And this afternoon, those of you that wish to stay, I'm going to talk about the big M, money. This afternoon, I'm going to talk about the 3 M's of money, what lack is, how you can transcend that. And this is not a magic 7 steps to financial freedom. It is fulfilling the principle found in the book of Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And the all, A-L-L, is in capital letters. When you learn how to do this, you don't manifest anything. You get into unconscious manifesting. You step out of your conscious mind, out of your ego, out of your expectations, out of your judgments, out of your attachments. And then when that happens, you just spread your wings and the Spirit carries you. When the Spirit carries you, synchronicity turns up in your life with monotonous regularity. And it's magical, because then you have more opportunities. You can poke a stick at it. And life gets really exciting. So how do you transcend lack? Well, first of all, let me explain the acronym of lack. L-A-C-K is love allowing confusion in your knowledge. L-A-C-K. If you are in lack, you have confusion in your knowledge somewhere down the line. If you didn't have confusion in your knowledge, you wouldn't be in lack. So I talk to people, I say, are you aware that your lack is a result of confusion in knowledge? I get some people offended. How dare you say I've got confusion in my knowledge? I know everything. Then my question is, well, if you know everything, why are you in lack? Why are you in need? Why don't you have the money to pay for your rent? And then there's some spurious excuse as to why that's the condition. So when you transcend lack, the first thing is to understand money. What is money? I will talk more about that this afternoon. It's the material offering the world nominates its exchange with yourself. So money is just simply material offering in this world. It is not power. You can say it's energy, because everything's energy, but looking at money as energy that flows is not quite succinct. It is simply a material offering, right? You exchange, a cow for a bag of wheat. That's all it is. Now the problem is that the world has bastardized the exchange to something called fiat currency that is an illusion. That's another story. Next is to understand the rules of the financial game and increase your value offering. A profound reason why most people are in lack and in need is because they're trading time for dollars at a low value. When you trade time for dollars at a low value, you're not going to have enough to pay the increasing bills and taxes on you. So this is about the value offering. Then you have to do the next point, which is to release the matrix programming of fear and lack. When you have the programming of fear and lack, it stops you from doing something different because of the fear of loss. What if I lose my income? How am I going to pay the bills? So releasing that matrix programming is important. And the last point is to turn your passion into profit as a virtual entrepreneur. I don't have an office. This is my office. My entire business runs on this, in exotic places. Beaches, mountains, forest, lakes. I look for exotic places to work because I get inspired by nature. Sian and I were going down the Southern Pyrenees in 2014. And the highest point in the Southern Pyrenees, which is the mountain range that borders Spain and France, is this mountain called Pic du Midi. It is 4,300 meters, which is, how many foot is that? It's very high up. It's, like 14,000 feet up. It's so high up, you need 2 cable cars to get to it. And up the top there, they've got an observatory, restaurant, hotel, and mobile phone tower. So after 2 hours of us just going, gawking, taking lots of photos, I go to the restaurant, buy a cup of coffee, plonk my iPad on the table, I get into my email. And I'm going, how surreal is this?
Right.
We were a week in Costa Rica, and down in beautiful beaches, up in the hills, on the beautiful lands, and I had mobile phone signal everywhere. So I could virtually work in a beautiful jungle up there. So this is what it means to be a virtual entrepreneur, because today it is easier to build a global business than a local business. So if you want financial independence, you have no choice but to embrace the virtual world. Let me say this again. If you want financial independence, you have no choice but to embrace the virtual world. And embracing the virtual world is like learning how to scuba dive. If you've never scuba dived before, it's scary. But anybody can learn, as long as you are willing to do it and go through the steps of training and learn how to do things in the virtual world. It's possible. My dear mother's 84. 10 years ago, she got into email. Her life's changed as a result of that. She can now send emails. She's been able to find the website of a beloved church and, go and watch sermons and, messages, etc. So that's important. Now, let me finish off with the last few slides. There are 5 principles in how to transcend your world. I have a 2-day workshop on this. The first principle is to change your thinking and beliefs. That's a big one. Second one is change your lifestyle, because your lifestyle determines the results in your life. The habits and patterns that you engage in make a big difference. The third principle is to discover who you really are. When you know who you really are, you have no questions about anything. When you know who you really are, you can step fully into the power of you as a spiritual light being. Principle 4, find and climb your highest potential, because all of you chose to check into this incarnation on this planet to do something very big What is it? And are you on your path? Fifth principle, transcend your mind to live in love and light. What this means is that if you don't transcend your mind, you are not able to live in love and light because you are mulling in unreality. How do you do all this? 5 simple steps. The first one is grounding, which is you being connected to Mother Gaia. Take your shoes off, go stand on the grass on the beach. In Florida, you are blessed with lots of sunshine and beautiful beaches. If you are not at the beach at least once or twice a week, you are denying your body phenomenal nurturing. And you might say you're too busy to do it. But if you're too busy, you cannot afford not to do it. Second step, lighten your body through diet exercise. That's a big message. I've lifted my game this year because my schedule's increased dramatically. So I'm putting more time and attention into my spiritual principles. And when you do that, things shift in your world. Sian and I get into our Akashic records. Sian teaches Akashic record workshop. She's doing a teaching in May in Mount Shasta. First time she's doing it in the USA, 2-day workshop. And the Akashic records is your book of life. When you get into it and get there, the messages are profound. So changing your disciplines is important. So I've been getting into my Akashic records and I've been doing exercise, which keeps my body functioning up. Third step is to release emotional baggage. So look at the negative emotions you experience. Anger, frustration, disappointment, fear, all those things. They are signs that you've got things to work on. Identify what they are, get help, work on them. Number 4, practice mindfulness and clear thinking skills. Because we are taught not to do this. Your education system teaches you to think poorly and narrowly. Last point, meditate. When you meditate, it's all about simply you going into your internal world and seeing what's there. That's all. Going down different rabbit holes and meditation techniques help the process, but if you get stuck in a rabbit hole, it hijacks you into knowing yourself. Second last slide is this. What is Light Alchemy about? This is my business, this is my website. The first thing is that it's about mastery of life. The second thing is about fusion with Source, merging with the I Am. And then the third aspect is the result is the liberation of life. The vehicle we use is the Pandora Star Lamp, which I invite all of you here who have not experienced it to try it this afternoon. It's a light portal, it activates your third eye, it helps your body heal, it shifts consciousness, experiences are profound. And there is my website, very simple, lightalchemy.me. And I will finish off with this quote. How do you transcend your world? Your perspective on your position determines your power. Do you see yourself as a pawn on a chessboard who's stuck and cannot move? Do you see yourself as a street sweeper only able to earn $10 an hour? Or do you see yourself as the queen that commands the entire chessboard? Or somebody that rules the world? So your perspective on your position determines your power or lack of it. And so, this is about spiritual freedom. And if you'd like to experience this afternoon after lunch, I'll be talking about money, transcending lack, and what's involved in turning your passion into profit as a virtual entrepreneur. Have a great day.
Would anybody like to have a comment or ask a question?